Okay. Hello and welcome to this video. The software was a bit strange there. Yeah, this video is featuring game 10 of the World Championship match between Magnus Carlsen, defending champion and challenger, Sergei Karjakin. Yeah, Karjakin is leading by 1 point and Carlsen desperately needs to win one of the remaining 3 games to at least level the match and get to a tiebreaker. And well, he has 2 white games left, so this game with white game 10 is one of the absolute key moments and chances for the defending champion to do something. I wasn't quite sure what he was going to play. I mean, there are some choices there. He lost with d4 with the collar in the last white game, and he returns to 1e4. We got a Spanish, a Runo pass, so no sidelines like, I don't know, the Scotch or something. Probably in critical situation, it's not a bad choice to go to something where you feel at home and not try something that is completely out of your usual waters, let's say. We see that Karjakin sticks here with the Berlin. This is, oh, let's check actually. Let's think about it. We had a Berlin earlier, right? That was game 3, yeah, was a Berlin. Yeah, back then in this game Carlsen opted for this variation, but this time he goes for d3. Yeah, the Berlin ending is probably a bad choice here. d3 just keeps more tension on the board. Bishop c5 and c3. Yeah, white can also take on c6. This is also a line that Carlsen has played here, this one, quite successfully, but probably here he wants to just keep a bit more tension on the board. Castles by Karjakin, and Carlsen goes for bishop g5. This is not so common. White usually castles in this position, but of course there have been dozens of games with this as well. Well, h6, bishop h4, and now I think an interesting decision by the challenger. It's a well-known motif and probably also quite well known in this particular position is the move bishop to e7. I actually think that Carlsen has played this in a game against Shirov some years ago. I kind of remember this game. Yeah, bishop e7. It looks a bit strange, yeah? Black moves the bishop again. He had it on c5 and now is going back to e7. It is, however, making quite some sense because you want to break this pin. This pin was very annoying, and usually you need to go g5 to get rid of it, and this is not the kind of decision you are very comfortable with in many cases once you have castled. So bishop e7 is conservative but a good move. Castles. Yeah, could have white taken the pawn? This is something that you always have to check. Yeah, what about this? Can white grab this pawn? Usually you cannot do that because of d5, which is opening up the position in the center against white's king. In this case there's even this tactic. Yeah, looking at this bishop, and if white takes, oops, queen takes, here the knight is hanging, so here black is even better. So castles was played, d6 and knight bd2, knight h5. This is the key idea with this bishop e7 move. After unpinning, black gets to trade this bishop. And this is something that is quite nice for black. It's an accomplishment to trade this piece. One reason is that you gain a good square for the queen. Black is having slightly less space, just a little bit less space, and like 1 or 2 piece trades are quite welcome. The white strategy in this game, this slow kind of position, reminded me a little bit of that final game in 1987 when Kasparov needed a win against Karpov to level the match, and Kasparov chose a very, very slow opening, like a Reti system with b3, g3, e3, such a very, very slow build-up kind of game. And I think Carlsen's strategy was a bit similar in that regard. Just play a very slowish position with small nuances, where Karjakin does not have a clear path to just, let's say, trade pieces or do something very straightforward where you have to maneuver a little bit. Yeah, knight f4. I mean, black is okay. I'm not saying that white is much better. It's just that it's a somewhat undefined position where you don't have a clear path to just like trade. Okay, knight f4. That knight has a good square there. Knight back to e3. That was the idea of knight c4. White looks at those crucial squares. Queen f6 played by Karjakin. That's also a fairly normal move. Black could have played f5 here actually. It's something that the engines quite like, but it's not really in the style of the challenger, and especially not if you're leading in the match. However, this kind of strategy to like always avoid any complications is something that is also, in my view, a little bit one-dimensional. So at one point you have to play some active moves. Okay, anyway, this is not like the best move or much better than what he did. It's just like this is the general kind of strategy that he has played, but he has been successful with it. So it's something that we have to accept in some way. Okay, queen to f6, g3. You need to do something about this knight. You cannot just like tolerate it on f4 for a long time. And here at least it puts the knight on this weird square. I mean, okay, black did not need to go there. He could have gone back. It's not like this loses, but white is definitely more comfortable here. Yeah, something like you can even think about d4 here. Yeah, just expand in the center. I didn't analyze this move actually. I'm just thinking about it now because knight h3 looks kind of normal, but the knight is also, I mean, liability is strong, but black has to watch out for this piece. It's a little bit off. So king h1, knight e7. Yes, this is also something that is quite common in those positions. The knight on c6 was looking at those covered squares and wants to regroup. Yeah, bishop c4 played by Carlsen, and Karjakin went c6 after a very long think. And I think this is a good indication that Carlsen's choice of position type wasn't a bad one, because it is clearly, as I said, a bit undefined what black wants to do here or should do here. And Karjakin was spending quite a good amount of time. So bishop b3, just like, okay, show me what you want to do. Went knight g6, again after some thoughts. Queen to e2. Yeah, this is actually a normal looking move, but one thing we have to keep in mind that there is a critical square on f4. So whenever, I mean, I really think there's something that, I'm not sure if there is a term for that or is there something like described in a book, but I always feel like technical strikes, they often happen on squares that are multiply attacked or controlled by a piece. Like here, yeah? If you put the queen on e2, you should always be aware that there are two knights pointed to f4. So let's say black, what did he do? I think he played a5, right? Yeah. So here on a very trivial note, yeah, something like that loses the queen, and it's something that you have to keep in mind. If many pieces point toward one square, like here there are four pieces, if you count the pawn, directed toward that square, you have to watch out for tactics on that square in particular. Here it is very obvious that king g2, knight f4 is a tactic, but there are far more complex situations where the same thing applies. It's something that I noticed over the years. Maybe there's also some kind of term for that is in a book that I'm not aware of, but it happens quite often, I think. Okay, a4 to stop any black expansion, and bishop e6, a very logical move. Yeah, and here Carlsen took a very surprising decision, and something that could have had very far-reaching consequences. What he probably should do here is to play a slow move here, like maybe knight d2 or bishop c2, one of the two. This is probably not a bad choice. I mean, we have to note that the pawn structure is almost completely symmetrical. The only difference is on the king side. And white is a little bit more comfortable, really just a tiny bit more comfortable because of this slightly awkward knight. So white ideally here could long-term try to maybe, let's say, play knight g2, f4 or something like that, with the black knight being subject or being kicked around and white getting more and more time. What Carlsen played is bishop takes e6, and the problem with this move is a tactical one. Black took with the pawn, opening up the f-file, and Carlsen went knight to d2. And here we come to an absolutely critical position of this game early on. Here, Karjakin, after not long thought, played the move d5. Now here the clocks are a little bit off, so it looks like he gained time. That's wrong, but he played this very quickly. And instead, he could have played here the move knight takes f2 check. And it's very surprising that he decided on d5 so quickly. Of course, I mean, Carlsen thought for 10 minutes on knight d2, so it was not like he could think about this before. But it's still surprising that he did not consider knight takes f2 more carefully. Okay, check. Let's have a look what would have happened. Okay, the king has to move. And we have to see that, okay, there are two moves. King g1. This is just a check. Check. And black here just has won a pawn, so that doesn't make any sense. So king g2. King g2. And now we come to this key tactical idea, knight h4 check. This is the thing. If white now takes it, queen g6 is going to win for black. The white king has no squares. So Carlsen would have had to move the king again, and we have a check here. And this is going to be a perpetual check. The only way here for white to deviate would be let's go. What was it actually? I have to, like this, there was this fork on f4. My notes are confusing. So king g1. Check. Ah yeah, of course, sorry. Stepping to g2 in this position. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so king g2. And now, of course, black has to fork on f4. And this leads to a very weird position. Takes, knight takes, rook takes, pawn takes, and the white knight needs to move probably to c2. Is that necessary? Can also go to c4. Yeah, and this position then. We have rook, black has a rook and two pawns. Those two pawns against two knights. And usually this should favor the side with the rook. Rook and pawn against two pieces is often already quite okay for the rook, and two pawns sounds great. This position, however, is not entirely clear because white has some pretty decent blockading chances against the pawns, and you should not underestimate the power of two pieces simply. Two knights against a single rook. If white manages to get some good outposts for his knights, he can actually be quite okay. So it's not clear to me if Karjakin rejected this possibility, that he did not like to play this unbalanced type of position, or if he had some miscalculation. Sorry, I'm kind of hitting this by accident. Or if there was some kind of miscalculation here, because he definitely did not avoid a draw. I mean, he would have been delighted to draw in 20 moves here with black. So it's kind of unclear what was missed. He played d5. And now Carlsen takes an interesting decision. He played queen h5. the thing is, it still allows knight takes f2. But this is not as clear as it was before, and it's a bit of a, I'm not sure if it was a conscious gamble or not, because it is queen h5 is the best move if black does not take on f2. Let's say it's better than f3 or any other move that would just stop any business on f2. So okay, he could have taken on f2 again, but this is a different story now. So check. Takes on f2. King g2. King g1 is answered by this strong move. That's a key idea. White takes it and check. Oops. Black remains a pawn up. So the king would have had to go here. And now we come to the tricky part. The move queen to f7. This is a key resource, threatening knight f4, winning the queen. And yeah, very, very difficult situation now. King g1 is a tricky move, getting out of the checks. And here the weird thing is that black here would lose if he does. I mean, black has to find one particular move. Queen to f6. This is the only move that does not lose, funny enough. But that does work. Yeah, again, threatening queen g5. And white now probably, I mean, white can repeat now with king g2. That would be another draw. But it's not necessary. I mean, white can play on. He can play a move like, I mean, black is not, he has to address queen g5 somehow. Let's say, I think even h4 was an idea. I know here actually knight f4 is good, I'm sorry. But rook e1, I had a move that you could continue with. Let me check. Notes are a total mess. Yeah, rook a1, a to e1 was something that white could have played. So I would actually understand if you would reject this position with black. Karjakin did not go for it. He played knight g5 instead, going back. However, this clearly constitutes kind of the admission that black is worse. Carlsen played h4. And now you have to go to f3. There is no other way. Yeah, you cannot seriously consider to go back. And white is going here, and the pawn here is falling already. So knight f3. Check. And now we get to this ending. And this ending is very uncomfortable for black. If you give this to an engine, it will just claim a very slight advantage for white. And it might be, like, completely mathematically speaking, not all that much. But in a practical game, it's pretty torturous. I mean, when I saw this position during the live broadcast, there was some discussion in the chat about how this game might progress. I was predicting that white would win this game. It's very one-sided. I mean, we have to... This happened next. It's very one-sided, and exactly the kind of position that Carlsen, of course, loves to play. Of course, he has failed in those situations earlier in the match, but you won't fail. You won't fail every time. That's not very likely to happen. So I was pretty optimistic here for white in this position. The next move, rook to e1, looks strategically completely normal, but is probably slightly inaccurate. But it was not used by Karjakin. He played h5. This is a move that you probably cannot avoid in the long run, because white playing h5, yeah, himself, is too annoying. Yeah, pushing the knight back and then the knight coming to g4 is a little bit too annoying. It's not a very beautiful move, but probably necessary in the long run, strategically speaking. But he had this move, and This would have asked Carlsen, what about rook e1? Isn't f2 attacked? Yeah, the funny thing is, if white now plays the completely normal looking move, rook to e2, there is a tactic. Black can take, and if white recaptures, there is knight f4. And black is all of a sudden completely fine using this fork trick. Yeah, I mean, white is not worse. He can play this, for example, and be okay, but he has given away all his advantage that he certainly had. It's funny, white actually can continue to play here just by not taking this pawn and just play like this. So this is funny. The computer actually still likes white here, at least a little bit. But like here, this is what the engine gives. White is 2 pawns down, but he will pick those up. But in the process, we will get so much stuff traded that black will draw very easily here, probably. Rook f8 was an opportunity. Of course, I mean, Carlsen can even play this move. This is not totally terrible. You can kind of regroup, but definitely, I mean, this should have been played by black. He played h5 though, and yeah, now everything is in order. The knight is on the way to go to g5. We can put this on the board, that regrouping, and here's a good moment to take stock and kind of explain a little bit why this is such an uncomfortable position for black. It's uncomfortable because you're stuck with an inferior pawn structure, and it's very difficult to see how black would actually improve that structure. Often a slightly inferior structure like a double pawn or so is not such a big deal if you can improve it, or if the weaknesses cannot be attacked all that easily. And in this position here, it's quite uncomfortable because black is there's no way that black will get rid of his double pawn, the doubled e pawns. White always has the opportunity here to, at the right moment, like take on d5 and attack the e5 pawn. It's one thing, and there is this inferior structure on the king side with the hold on g5. So white has knight g5 at all times. And again, black has no decent kind of pawn lever, anything that would improve his position, while white has a ton of options. He has the capture on d5 to open up the e-file. He has the move d4. You can sometimes take here and put pressure here. You can play d4 to make progress. This is what happens in the game. Or you can play b4 in some cases to open up the queen side. And the addition of all those possibilities means that white can improve a little bit and try around with no risks, while black is basically stuck with a purely passive defense. This is essentially the roles that we usually had in the match. Karjakin willing to accept a somewhat inferior position and defend it tenaciously, and Carlsen trying to make something out of the better positions, which is what frustrated him, I guess, a lot, that he could not get a win against a couple is strong. I mean, 2 or 3 of those positions against those like passive, somewhat inferior position that he couldn't break through. So this is the kind of another chance to do that. So knight g5, rook e7. It doesn't really make sense to analyze this move by move. White is trying to improve and chooses the d4 break. This is opening up the position in the middle and gets rid of the double pawn. So you could question this decision, but because it helps black to get rid of one of the weaknesses. But this is a trade-off, as it often is. Black, of course, has to take, and he took with the knight. And now we see the trade-off. The knight is positioned on d4, and black cannot kick it away with c5 or e5, as that would leave far too many weaknesses behind, or would just straight away lose. Yeah, I mean, this is
check.
Happy move. And c5 is also entirely wrong.
Check.
After the check, black will lose stuff in the middle here, like this. Just a terrible situation. So the knight has a strong position on d4, and we see Carlsen's idea here. He's gaining space there in the middle, and sorry, here we see that black is stuck now with a different set of weaknesses. The pawn is on g6, that was played to cover f5, but this is giving white an additional idea. g6 weak, e6 weak, and you have the b4 push. That's going to be happen soon. First brought the rook there. By the way, something that I keep explaining in videos is that Carlsen did not picture here a grand winning plan, like what do I do in 20 moves, but usually you make those little plans, those mini plans, like first let's get the rook to f6, like tickle him a little bit there, g6, e6, and then see what happens. It's usually a step-by-step process. So don't often in your own games, it's a good idea to just make small plans, improve slowly, and try around a little bit. Don't try to spend 20 minutes to find some kind of ingenious maneuver that is like 20 moves deep. It's very rarely that this even exists. So just try to do simple things that improve your position. Rook g7, and now b4 being played. Yeah, so black has to take this, and now we see the next step. What white has managed here is to get this additional possibility here. Yeah, it's a very uncomfortable position for black, really very uncomfortable, and it is also difficult here to do anything else but a passive defense. Yeah, Karjakin is very good at those passive defenses like fortresses, and kind of simply find a setup that holds. But here, I mean, there's really rarely anything else. You just have to sit tight and defend without having any active prospects. So knight g8 returned, and a5 being played. Yeah, securing the c5 square. Yeah, of course, white does not want to trade, and now went to c5. So king went over here. Again, let's take stock. What are white's ideas? White here mostly has two ideas. He has the move b5. That could have been not here, because of the fork, but I'm just showing it. This is the general idea to break through. Here it doesn't work, because there's the fork on d4, but this is the first idea. Open up the queen side. Can we maybe, yeah, here's a position to show it without blundering stuff, because Carlsen played the move rook d3 to cover that square. So like b5 is one plan. It's not very effective here, but I just want to show it. This opens up the b file so that b7 is attackable, and what white wants to do also is rook to b6 to attack e6. So usually you need more than one weakness to win a game, and here black has a couple, like e6, g6, b7. So this points toward white having very serious winning chances in general. So b5 is one idea to get at the weaknesses, and the other, a little bit more complicated idea to make progress, would be king h3, f3, g4. Push the f5 knight away. If the black knight would need to retreat passively to something like g7, that would be pretty bad. So those two ideas, combining them, is what Karjakin here has to face. Rook a3, knight d4. We enter a maneuvering phase. Carlsen is doing this very slowly, and this is how you do it. Don't rush things. Yeah, knight h6, f3. Yeah, introducing this possibility of g4. Rook f7 is a clever little move. Yeah, g4 now.
Check.
Would be quite embarrassing. But still, of course, rook d4 was played. just keeping everything. Yeah, rook h7. This was Karjakin's idea. With rook on h7, he's ready to to prevent g4. Yeah, like here.
Check.
Blunders the house. So Carlsen went rook b3, again hinting at b5. Rook to e7. So this is Karjakin's defensive setup. This rook protects e6, and they both protect b7. Yeah, it is a good setup, definitely. We're nearing the critical phase, as I said, just a couple of moves before the move 60 time control. Carlsen played rook to d3. He could have played b5 in this position already. After takes, black has this defensive idea. It's a very important idea. The knight on c4 looks at e5, a5 and b6. So this was a key motif. Carlsen played this move. It looks very innocent, right? What is that move doing? Is he just waiting? No, he's actually covering the square. This move does make perfect sense. Karjakin now played rook back to h8 and Carlsen shuffled back. And Karjakin played rook h7 again. And now, this is really, from a practical point of view, very nice. He just, rook b1 is a waiting move. And rook h7 is the kind of the natural move you would play, because you just, it's like a shuffle. Yeah, white is shuffling back, you shuffle back. But this is not like white hasn't done anything. He has put the rook on d3. And Karjakin indeed played rook to h7. And this proved to be actually the losing mistake. It looks like nothing much, but this is actually losing the game. He had to, absolutely had to now change tack and play this move. I know it sounds weird, but you will see after b5, white is crashing through. This is actually still very, very tough. White has all those advantages as described, but it might not be enough to win. If he now tries to break through, there is this one. And this is very important. There is this additional move now. And from h7, you cannot go to c8. Yeah, this is the thing. Now b5 was played just before the second time control. Breaking through. And now we see the problem. There is no rook c7 or whatever. I mean, black now is faced with rook b6. The knight here has no squares. This is what rook d3 did. Yeah, it controls this. White's position is perfectly coordinated now. Yeah. Karjakin now played d4. It doesn't really have a move. And after this we see it collapses. Hangs is attacked. Weak. Yeah, you can only protect one. Yeah, you can do this, but then actually this is stronger even than rook takes d4. Yeah, there's a6. Yeah, I thought like picks up the pawn, but you can actually even go here and then play a6. Yeah, okay. He tried rook c7, and Carlsen took the pawn. Rook c3. Knight f4. That was move 61. The time control was done. The second one. Yeah, white has won a pawn, but it is a very important pawn, the e6 pawn, so that he has a passer. The e pawn now is free to go, and g6 is under heavy fire. Karjakin tried rook to c7, and here white has two ways to win. The move that Carlsen played is enough to win. He played the move knight to d5, the tactical solution in a way. Rook takes g6 was also sufficient. I was actually very impressed at this point with an engine. Yeah. If you give this position to after knight d5, let's look at this. Knight d5. It's a fork, takes. This position. If you look at this with a stockfish engine on a regular computer, I have a fairly quick, normal quad-core desktop. So it's not super high-end, but pretty okay. And it gives white like 1.5 or something. So you kind of suspect that it could be a win, but in those endings where pawns dwindle down the pawn count, sometimes this is misleading what the engine is giving. Anyway, like 1.5. But if you give this to a extremely strong engine, yeah, there's an online engine that can be checked during the games. If you want to check it out yourself during the games, it's you have to Google Sesse, SESSE. It's the URL is Sesse dot something, SESSE. This is a 40 core system, 40 cores, and this is giving like plus 80 or so for white, yeah, after a relatively quick time. So the engine says basically sees that white is queening a pawn in the future in like whatever 25 moves. So this is crazy how quick this engine gets to such a calculation depth that white is totally winning. In the game, actually, it's not in an actual game between humans, it's still a little bit tricky. Karjakin played this, it's the best move, knight b5 back, and king to c8. This is still somewhat tricky. In this position here, Carlsen spent a couple of minutes and now try to calculate it all the way till the end, and he did so successfully. There's in fact only one way to win. I mean, it's not superhuman to find it, but you still have to play it. Yeah, he took on g6, and after rook takes, king g2. This is the most precise way of doing it. The black rook is attacked, and it has no other option than to move on the third rank, after which knight d6 gets to a rook ending. You always have to be very circumspect when you go to a rook ending, because the drawing margin in those endgames is usually very high. You sometimes even cannot win with 2 extra pawns in some unlucky cases. Here, however, it is a fairly straightforward win. The white rook will pick up the d pawn, and the white king ultimately will enter here. In the game we had rook e3, e6, king c7, and here we see the point. The white rook is very nicely positioned on the 5th rank. It covers this one, attacks this one, and white is now entering with the king. And after king f6 here, Karjakin resigned the game. So the match is now tied with 5 points each for both players. So what we have now is a mini match of 2 games. There are just 2 games left. Karjakin will have white in game 11 and Carlsen will have white in game 12. Something that I actually think, I mean, it's not a huge advantage from the, I mean, it is, there's a drawing of lots at the beginning, who's getting white in what game, and having white in the final game I think is a slight advantage. Anyway, so 2 games left. Carlsen has leveled the score, and I think this psychologically is extremely good, of course, for him. He first of all, he's got the point to level the match, but he also has won his first game in game 10. Yeah, if someone would have predicted that Carlsen is not winning a single game out of 10 games or 9 games and then breaking through on game 10, it probably would have earned lots of money in some kind of, if you can bet on that. It kind of reminded me a little bit of the London match in 2000, where Kasparov didn't score a win against Kramnik, and he was, yeah, I mean, almost visibly falling apart. Like, why am I not winning a game? I should win a game somewhere. I mean, this is probably something for people with the knack for statistics. When was the last time that Carlsen has not won 9 games in a row in classical chess? That probably must have been like 10 years ago, if it ever happened. I mean, 9 games in a row without a win, that's tough. That's very tough. So he has won this first game in this match. If you want me to make a prediction, I think Carlsen will win this match now, but it's just my personal take on it. I think he needed this kind of this kind of boost to just have won a game and be kind of in the match now. What we have to say about this game, however, is it all hung about on one or two situations. Carlsen did not play perfectly, especially in the beginning. He didn't play it well at all, allowing knight f2 and so on. However, he played very well now, this time, in the technical phase of the game. Like everything that happened from move from here. Yeah, okay, yet this rook e1 was also slight inaccuracy, but everything after that was basically perfect play. And this is certainly a good sign for the fans of the world champion. Yeah, Karjakin again kind of accepted passively a position that was, maybe it was defendable, I don't know. Maybe there is some way to defend this position, and but it was a very unattractive proposition. And if you do that like all of the time, you're going to get hit at some point. Yeah, I think it was an interesting game. I hope you enjoyed the coverage. I have to say something here on personal note. I'm traveling to a tournament the coming weekend, and that means the game 11 that will be played on Saturday, I probably will only be able to cover on Sunday evening when I'm returning from the tournament. Game 11 will be played on Saturday, then there will be rest day on Sunday, and game 12 will be played on Monday. Possible tie breaks then will be on the Wednesday after that, on the 30th. So yeah, I can only cover things from home. I'm not taking all my equipment with me to a tournament. So Sunday evening will be probably the time when I'm going to cover game 11. Yeah, we can definitely look forward to very tense 2 games. Thanks for watching this video. Bye bye.